Joining us now, Karl Neddenien. Hey, Karl.
Hey, good morning, John.
Karl, so what's going on with my pipeline? Now what's the holdup?
Well, we're going to build the darn thing, first of all, but last week we had a court ruling that affected us, our schedule a little bit. The Fourth Circuit Court denied our request for an en-banc appeal of a previous decision. Now, the simple explanation is we're building a 600-mile pipeline, as you mentioned, to bring reliable economical gas from West Virginia into Virginia and North Carolina, where it's desperately needed. We need to get across the Appalachian Trail. So back in 2017, the United States Forest Service granted us a right-of-way across the Appalachian Trail. The thing is, we're going to do it by tunneling across it 600 feet below the surface. So there'll be no trees cut, no impact on the trail itself. But last week, the Fourth Circuit Court denied our request for an appeal of a decision that basically vacated that right-of-way. They said, nope, it's no good. The Forest Service does not have the authority to issue it. So with that decision, we are now headed to the U.S. Supreme Court because we've got to have access below the Appalachian Trail. Otherwise, we've just established an impregnable barrier, 2,100 miles long, between Georgia and Maine that separates the energy sources to the west from the energy customers to the east, and that does not make sense.
So look, Karl, this decision by the Supreme Court affects more than just the Atlantic Coast Pipeline in Virginia. It affects any transportation through a pipe of energy from west to east because, as you say, the Appalachian Trail, those that know it, starts in the North Georgia mountains in Dahlonega, about an hour and a half about an hour north of this, about an hour and a half out north of the city of Atlanta, and goes all the way up to mid-Maine. So that cuts off the entire East Coast from energy through pipeline. So this is bigger than just the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. This affects everything, right?
Yeah, it's very confusing because there already are 53 natural gas pipeline crossings along the Appalachian Trail. What happens to them? This needs to be resolved. We need to have the Supreme Court decide on whether we're going to set up this new barrier, because if we do, we're not going to be able to bring the gas that supports the jobs, that supports the economy. We just need to get that clarified, get everything back to the way it should be. I mean, the decision from the court, they have the authority, of course, but it ignores key provisions in several statutes. It contradicts the long-standing views of every federal agency involved, and as I said, it converts the Appalachian Trail into a barrier.
So there's already how many pipelines already go over the crossing over the trail? 20?
Well, we have 53 natural gas pipelines, not us, but overall there are 53 natural gas pipeline crossings. We're the first one that's going to go below it, 600 feet to 800 feet deep. That's equivalent to 2 Statues of Liberty. That's how far down we're going to avoid physically impacting the trail itself.
All right, so but there's already 53 that have been granted a license or granted the opportunity to do that. Why is it now being cut off?
Well, the people opposing our pipeline filed an appeal. The court upheld that decision and said that now the National Forest Service doesn't have the authority to grant the right-of-way. And, of course, we're appealing that. So
who does have
mention that there are about 151 electric transmission lines currently crossing the Appalachian Trail also. So there's a lot of them out there already. We don't understand why the Atlantic Coast Pipeline has to be different, especially because we're going to put it underground.
Well, what was their reasoning?
They just said that the National Forest Service does not have the authority to do it.
So who does?
Well, we're going to work on that. We think they do. But that's the purpose of the appeal to the Supreme Court, is to establish whether this ruling is appropriate, if something else should be taking place. And it's not the only thing we're pursuing. It's the lead path we have right now. We're also looking at administrative and judicial approaches also to get this clarified, because it can't stand.
So, Karl, we're with Karl Neddenien. Karl is the chief spokesperson for the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. So, Karl, when would a SCOTUS decision by the Supreme Court of the United States, what's the timing? When would that be rendered?
Well, we have to make it clear that we're going to be filing within the next 90 days. That's filing our appeal. Then the Supreme Court has to decide whether they're going to hear it. We feel it is important enough, for the reasons I just explained, that they will hear it, and then it's up to them. They set the schedule.
So it could be months or many months. Like, just give me a potential time frame, like 2019 or 2020 or 2021. When would it be heard?
It could be several months, but this is not blocking the entire pipeline construction route. This is just the crossing beneath the Appalachian Trail. We can still build, if we want to, the pipeline leading up to the trail and the pipeline heading south from, let's say, something like Buckingham. We've been planning to build the pipeline in two phases. The first phase begins in West Virginia, extends almost to the Virginia border, and picks up from Buckingham, Virginia, and heads south from there. It's the section in between, which includes the Appalachian Trail, this phase 2.
So George, is there any construction of the Atlantic Coast Pipeline going on right now?
No, we suspended construction in December. We voluntarily did that when a Fish and Wildlife Service authorization was stayed by the same court, the Fourth Circuit Court. Now, our appeal of that decision is going to be heard in early May by the same court. We're hoping that they will clarify or restrict the impact of their ruling. There are 4 species that exist along only 100 miles of the pipeline route, and we think that if this is the area of concern, allow us to continue construction on the rest of the pipeline while we resolve any questions or concerns about that section. So we're waiting to see about that.
How frustrating. I just want my pipeline. I mean, this has been going on for so long. There's like one roadblock thrown up at you guys after the other. You know, jobs, people could have all these jobs. We could by now have the energy, which would bring more manufacturing along the pipeline's route because you could tap right into it. You'd have manufacturers, you'd have plants, you'd have jobs on the pipeline. I mean, it's just costing us thousands of good-paying jobs every single day, and it really irks me that this, you know, that cord or this cord or that cord can just block stuff for no reason. I mean, the fact that there's already 53 pipelines going over the trail, I mean, what's the difference if there's 53, 54, 10, or 100? It's still some. I don't get that. It's outrageous.
That is a question that needs to be resolved. As you said, the people along the pipeline, the ones who are looking forward to the jobs, to the economy, the trained construction workers who are planning to be able to work at a site around the corner instead of across the country, they're all saying, why are we being held up? Why are these people doing this to us? They're not blaming the court. They're blaming the people who are having a concerned, well-organized, well-funded effort to stop all the development of energy infrastructure in America. And they're just creating some very effective stalling tactics that we have to get through because we're going to build the Atlantic Coast Pipeline. It's needed. The energy it brings, the economy it will feed, they're all extremely important.
So other than the court ruling on going under the Appalachian Trail, which now you're blocked, is there any other court rulings that are stopping any other pieces of the pipeline now?
The only other one is the one I mentioned about the Fish and Wildlife authorization. We're hoping to get that clarified.
And that is where? What area is that?
West Virginia.
West Virginia. So what about the Buckingham station thing, whatever that was that people were trying to file lawsuits on? What about that aspect of it?
Yes, it's the Buckingham Compressor Station.
Right.
Our compressor station provides the force to push natural gas through the pipeline.
Right.
We issue all the necessary permits. Some people, including former Vice President Gore, have been protesting the decision. We worked closely with that community for a long time, listened to their concerns, acted upon the concerns, and worked with them to do a number of things, including providing more than $5 million to the community to build things like better emergency response facilities and the things they need. We have all the permits, but this is probably the only opportunity the opposition has to try to drive a wedge between the community that opposes the pipeline, which is very small, and the community that supports the pipeline, because they want the benefits, they want the jobs, they want the opportunities. But we have the permits we need, and we would like to begin building it as soon as we get the court clarification.
Well, I hope that happens soon. So, so what you're going to do is, because we don't know how long the Appalachian Trail thing is going to be, so when does construction start? When can it start on the other pieces of the pipeline before you actually have the underground connector between West Pipeline and East Pipeline over the trail? When can you start back up?
We're going to be hearing or offering our arguments before the court May 5 through 7. We expect the decision could be rendered in a matter of months, and we could begin construction on the rest of the pipeline as early as the third quarter of this year. And because it's being built in two phases, if we finish the first phase, we'll still be able to bring natural gas from existing infrastructure, a Transco natural gas pipeline, into parts of Virginia and North Carolina. We'll be able to provide a greater supply, better access to the areas that need it, even though we won't be connected to the lower cost source of natural gas in West Virginia. So it'll help, but we're going to need to build the entire pipeline to be able to get things going the way they should.
All right. Sounds excellent. We're out of time for this segment. I want to thank Karl Neddenien for being with us, spokesperson Atlantic Coast Pipeline. Karl, keep fighting, man. I want to get this pipeline done. I want to get those jobs. I want to get the energy. I just want to get it done and put people back to work. Thank you.
Thank you.